Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to episode 164 of the ARC Junkies podcast. I am back to work today. Spring break is officially over for me, but I had a great week off. I finished some projects around the house, got some checks done off the honey-do list, did a couple of side jobs, took the family to Universal and SeaWorld so that we could spend some time together, as my break was last week and my kids, their break is this week, so our schedules didn't line up, so we just did what we could. They had a great time, and I will tell you this much. If you are planning on coming down to Orlando and heading over to Universal Studios this year, you definitely need to hit up Harry Potter Land over Islands of Adventure. It's freaking amazing, and Hagrid's motorbike ride is probably one of the coolest coasters I have been on. It's not the fastest, as it tops out around 50 miles an hour, but the whole concept is really cool. You're in a motorcycle with a sidecar and twisting and turning forward, backwards. It's pretty neat. Definitely one of the coolest coasters I've ever been on. So whether you're a fan of Harry Potter series or not, this ride is a must. If you go to Universal Studios, definitely you're probably going to have to hit up the virtual line. That's what we did. You check in ahead of time, kind of pick your time slot, and then you can go back later. But it was definitely worth the wait. I also had an amazing opportunity to help out my buddy Malachi work on a prototype for a rudder attachment that will allow disabled veterans to steer a sailboat. So there's this really cool program out in Tampa called Warrior Sailing, where they teach veterans how to sail. Some of the men and women have lost their limbs or appendages doing, just kind of during their tour of active duty. And so they can't use a standard rudder. So Malachi was asked to build an attachment so they could operate the boat despite their disabilities. So he came up with this really cool design that's going to allow them to utilize the rudder and sail just like anybody else. So he brought over the prototype. We kind of put some of the saws and tools and stuff to work, and we were able to make a working prototype that he brought out there and did some test fit and everything. We got to make a few modifications to it, but it should be, fairly simple to use, and hopefully by the end of the month. I just think it's really cool that there's programs out there to help service the veteran population and provide an opportunity for our vets to get together, have that camaraderie once again, and to learn a new hobby. So I was really glad to be a part of that, and I'm really happy that he asked me to come over so we could put that thing together. It was really cool. On today's episode of the ARC Junkies podcast, I am talking to Chloe Hudson, also known as Arc Welding Angel on Instagram. Chloe had a different path in high school. She had a different plan for her future, but she ended up in the welding industry instead. And she did nuke power plant welding for about 10 years before she settled down into a company that does aerospace and NASCAR welding. She's a kick-ass welder and has the skills to back up what she says. I had a great time chatting with her, and I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy listening to the episode. Now, before we get into the episode, I want to take a quick moment to thank the supporters of the show. Today's episode of the ARC Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Whether you're a small business owner looking to set up some side work, or you just want a reliable machine at an affordable price, Everlast has you covered. Check out their full line of stick, MIG, TIG, and multi-process welders at everlastwelders.com. They have a machine for every skill level and every budget. They also offer financing as low as $35 a month for qualified applicants. That's less than the price of a cup of coffee per day. I'm a huge fan of their MTS line, whether it's the 225 or the 275. I just think it's awesome to have AC and DC TIG capabilities, as well as stick, MIG, and the FluxCore option all in one machine for under $6,000. Now, to have that same set of processes, you'd have to buy two different machines, or you'd have to spend a lot more money. But with the 225 or the 275, you pretty much get all in one. So you're taking up a lot less floor space in the shop, and you're spending a lot less money up front. So, think about the options there. Floor space is a precious commodity in the shop, so now you got one machine taking up, a little bit of room, whereas instead you'd have two machines taking up, twice the amount of space. So head on over to everlastwelders.com and see which machine is right for you. Make sure to use code word ARCJunkies in the comment section at checkout when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal and TIG torch, and you'll be automatically upgraded to that Nova foot pedal and TIG torch, which is a $100 value. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys, which in my opinion is the best kept secret in the welding industry when it comes to maintenance welding. Got to weld the similar metals together? No problem. Need to weld up cast iron or cast steel? No problem. Can't quite clean the metal well enough so you're not getting porosity or cracks in your welds? No problem. Using 7018, 6010, or 70S6 wires and rods on these types of repairs is like putting a Band-Aid on when you really need a tourniquet. We all know the equipment downtime is costly. For every hour your equipment is down, it's costing you money, and making the same repair over and over just to keep your machine limping along doesn't make sense either. Get the job done right the first time with Rockmount and get your equipment back in the game and making you money. They also offer a full line of welding accessories to include drill bits, abrasives, burr bits, and welding chemicals like flame hold and anti-spatter. They make some of the coolest products you've never heard of. They also have great customer service and support and can help you find the right electrode for your most aggravating repair. Check them out today at rockmountwelding.com and tell them the Arc Junkie sent you. Be sure to give them a follow on Instagram as well at rockmountwelding. I'm also proud to be supported by the folks over at Outlaw Leather. They make some of the coolest custom hoods in the game. I've been using an Outlaw Leather hood since 2016, and it's by far my favorite hood. They also make custom arm braces, bolt bags, scabbards, and sleever bar holders. Check them out today at outlawleatherusa.com and use Arc Junkies at checkout to save 15% off all their handmade leather goods. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get into today's episode with Chloe Hudson. Fire up your machines, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies podcast. Helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Chloe Hudson, also known as Arc Welding Angel on Instagram. Chloe, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Happy International Women's Day. I know that the episode won't drop till the following Monday, which is a week after, but I just wanted to let you know happy International Women's Day. Today is March 8th.
Appreciate it. We don't need a day, but appreciate it.
Right. So I want to hear about your story because I've read about your story. I've seen some links and blog articles and all kinds of stuff. You've got a very interesting background where you started off heading into the medical industry and then shifted gears.
Yes. So in high school, actually from the time I was really little, I always wanted to work in medicine. All through high school, I was a part of HOSA. I got my platinum seal in health sciences in high school. Every single science class I could take, I took it. And the first 3 years of my high school career, I got my platinum seal. So my senior year of high school, I pretty much had nothing that I could take to kind of further that. And they wanted me to fill my schedule with something. And at the time I had a 98 Jeep Cherokee shitbox. And all my guy friends, they were the mechanics, and I really didn't know a whole lot about mechanics, and I was kind of behind the 8 ball on that. But, we all wanted fab bumpers and, rocker panels and all these different things that we needed someone to know how to weld. And I was like, well, that's like 2 credits. So I'll just take welding at high school. And so that's what I did. Scott Hightower was my teacher. And after about a half a semester in, he was like, this could be for you. So I wasn't afraid of a 60-10 rod. That's kind of what I picked up first. I went from 60-10 to 70-18s. And I guess my OCD really kicked in, and perfection was always kind of the name of the game for me, especially in the medical field. You just kind of have that inherent need for everything to be just right. So it really worked out for me. But it was still nothing that I really took seriously as far as a career. And I graduated high school, left high school the day after graduation, and started a nursing program in Kentucky. Again, on this path for medicine. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon, specifically reconstruction, because my grandmother had melanoma on her nose and her reconstruction was completely botched. And it was something that really inspired me to help people kind of regain their confidence, even after something so serious as cancer. And that's really what I wanted my focus to be on as far as plastics is concerned. So I went to the VA and did clinicals there. Hated it, hated the way patients were treated, could not imagine living my life like that in and out of hospitals where it was just such poor facility management and the people just weren't kind. And it was so far from what I expected that it made me go home, and I kind of reconsidered welding and enrolled and got some credits from being able to pass tests in high school and got rolling on that career path. Quit again halfway through. Took a job in nuclear maintenance traveling because, no one was helping me. I didn't have parents. I didn't come from a trust fund. Well, I do have parents, loving parents, but I didn't come from a trust fund. I had two younger brothers who are both 2 years and then 3 years younger than me. So they needed more attention than I really ever needed as far as like parental help. I mean, I was so driven enough that I wanted to make my own money. I wanted to buy the things that I wanted to buy. I wanted a nice car. I wanted nice clothes. So it really kind of persuaded me to get into working as soon as possible. And I did. And I took every shit job that I could take just to keep me working. I didn't follow the outage schedule. A lot of people do 6 months on, 3 months off, 6 months on, here and there. I just took whatever I could, as much experience under my belt as possible. Still welding, welded for some fabrication facilities, welded just on the side, some equipment repair, that kind of thing. And realized that all the guys that had the nice brand new trucks and the paper tags, they were all craft people. There are people who are electricians and welders, and that's, besides the supervisors, that's who was making the money, especially come outage season. So it was kind of the spark that I needed, no pun intended, to really get back into it. And then I realized, this late in the game, I don't qualify for scholarship. I don't get state assistance anymore. I am so anti-FAFSA. I do not need a loan from the government. And decided then that I would couple my 40, 50-hour a week job with a second job, and worked at an urgent care facility on the weekends, and re-enrolled, took it serious. It's a little different when it's your money you're spending. So I was very, 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 very focused. In the process, got to do Skills USA, and Yeah. So I won my category, which was 3-inch stainless pipe. First woman in state history, first woman at my school to win that particular category. I think at all, actually. I don't think any female at my school had ever won a welding competition. Only one to win, period, for my school that year, and graduated cum laude. So my GPA was pretty good. And then from there, I was still working at a nuke plant and still working fleet reactor services, and wanted to really focus on getting that job title as welder, which people don't really recognize as really important whenever you're trying to build a resume as a welder. Most people don't care if you're maintenance and you did side work as a welder. They want to know what certifications you've got and who you welded for. And it's got to be on paper, AWS paper. So I asked my boss for help because I was getting nothing but no's, even with someone who had 5 years experience in the nuclear sector, construction, industrial, all these certifications and heavy equipment. I was getting no's, just right off the rip. Even some people that I knew personally wouldn't risk their guys' job by having me around, and got a lot of pushback, and finally asked my boss for help because I needed it. And he set me up with my first welder job, and it was for Orano, building dry cast storage containers for nuclear spent fuel, which was really in the vein of what I was used to, because Fleet Reactor Services actually moves used fuel rods and replaces them with new fuel rods during shutdowns. So it was right in the vein of what I was used to. Same exact procedures, the vernacular that was used. I was very, very familiar. From there, I mean, I really knew that job was a stepping stone for me. And that's what people have to realize too, when they get in this industry. You have a whole lot of stepping stones. There's not anyone who goes from school right into the top paying job unless you know somebody, or unless you want to go fit for somebody on a pipeline somewhere that already just knows you. So that was a stepping stone job for me. I went with Hope Power and Industrial to kind of round out some more skills. So I went as a millwright welder and did turbine shutdown work for them. So we would do shutdown turbines in hydroelectric plants and refurbish them and rebuild them. And then from there, I got a phone call from Shane Love at Joe Gibbs Aerospace with my dream job. So he called me and kind of explained to me what he was trying to accomplish. And it was titanium. Never welded titanium in my life. He sent me a care package and with coupons in it. And I spent a 12-hour shift one day just down there messing with it and sent him pictures of my work. And it was enough to get a test, and flew from Massachusetts to North Carolina on a Saturday and took the test for them, passed the test. And I've been working with Joe Gibbs Aerospace, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Airborne Industries ever since.
That's awesome. And now I've got so many questions for you.
Okay.
So question number one, because I'm very interested in this aspect. Did you receive one of the MicroWorks scholarships?
I did. So
Perfect.
Yes. So my first semester in school, I paid for and was kind of struggling a bit. And my dad was like, hey, look into this. I think this is something you can qualify for. And let me tell you, they make you work for that scholarship.
Yes.
I had to get recommendations from supervisors, from people I worked with. I had to do long form questionnaire that's pages and pages long. I had to do a video on YouTube, which is really cringeworthy nowadays.
Is it still up? I'm going to have to pull that up.
God, it's so bad. It's so bad. I was so nervous. I was not confident in what I was asking for, because I am not the kind of person to ask for things. I am the person that just works for them because I don't want to ask. So it was so far outside my comfort zone, but it ended up working out, and they paid for an entire semester of class for me. And it hit at a time where I got a reduction of force from the nuke plant and had to take a job at Borg Warner, where they build transfer cases at a night shift, and to kind of fill in the gap. And that job, it was tough and it wasn't enough. And so they have no idea. They saved my ass that semester because it was not looking good for me.
No, that's great, because I get students in the program all the time that, like, our program's not covered by FAFSA. I guess, which is a good thing, but then it's a bad thing. We've got other scholarships and stuff that are available, and I tell students,
right,
don't take out student loans, because I fell into that whole trap, and I owe student loans, and I'm paying them off like I'm supposed to. But I knew the risk when I was getting into it, and I also applied for scholarships and got rejected. But I tell students all the time, apply for the AWS scholarships, apply for nuts, bolts, and thingamajigs. There's an actual scholarship, nuts, bolts, and thingamajigs. You guys can check it out if anybody's listening. And then the MicroWorks is another one. And
yes,
nobody in the past 2-3 years that I've been promoting this I had one student apply for it and didn't get it. Nobody else will apply for it because they get on there and then they see the sweat pledge. You got to sign the sweat pledge first. And that's kind of like the introduction into, okay, this isn't going to be easy. We're not going to just hand you over money, but I mean, they give you literally buckets of money, and in some cases they'll pay your whole tuition.
Yes.
So you've got to want it. Especially if you're not working, why not? That's what I can't get through to people. So I was going to see if you had any, kind of recommendations on how to do that, so that I could pass that information off on to my students and say, hey, if you're going to apply for this, here's some things you want to consider. Here's some things you want to do.
Well, it's free money, and people forget about that. They look at FAFSA as free money, and it's so misguided. Mm-hmm. because it's not, it's a high interest
credit
loan when
card.
it comes down to it. And yeah, a high interest credit card that you can never say sorry. And I can't pay it. No, it follows you till you die.
Yeah. You have to die to get rid of it.
Yeah. And it's just, when you have the opportunity to not only get money to pursue a dream and a job and to do it, and all it takes is sitting down in front of a computer, asking people for help where you need it. And that's it. It takes time. Time is money. And for your time, they are giving you money.
Mm-hmm.
It's more money than you're going to take home from a job, with no taxes, just cash money handed to you for something in a lump sum like that. So I think young people don't understand the value of a dollar because majority of young people don't have jobs. I think that young people nowadays have gotten very accustomed to the fact that parents are expected to support their children up until they're 25, 26. And that's a very common trend. And even I remember growing up, my parents had their own business, and it didn't matter. I mean, from the time I was able to contribute to their business, I had to work for things that were extra. And I at the time, I didn't understand what value that had in my life now. But if I wanted, an extra pair of tennis shoes or a church outfit or a toy, I had to build binders for my dad to take into architect offices. And it really made me recognize early on that my time is stamped with a dollar amount. And that dollar amount is what I can choose, essentially, is what it boils down to, because you can change that dollar amount. So you choose that dollar amount because you say, okay, I'm going to do this job for it, or that's not enough, so I'm going to do this job for it. And it's no different than when it comes to scholarships. So are you going to devalue your time, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, when it means paying for tuition towards a job that will make you more money in the long run? Because it's an investment. It's an investment in yourself. So I would say take it seriously. It seems overwhelming. I've been through it. I was overwhelmed. And what you do is you take one piece of it at a time. That's what you do. And I worked 2 jobs. I was going to school full time. So there's no excuse. I mean, there's absolutely no excuse to not do it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love the fact that you started with, work ethics at a young age. Because I come from a family of 5. So there was like, you got the basics. Here's the essentials. So it was like Payless and Kmart, and like cheap clothes and Goodwill and all that stuff and hand-me-downs. And, my mom told me, I was like, hey, I want, this specific pair of pants and this, these types of shoes and stuff. She's like, go get a job. Okay, done. So, at age 15, I went to go work in the restaurant industry. It was the only thing I could get into. And I busted my ass. I rode my bicycle, every day when I got home from school, I'd ride my bicycle all the way to the restaurant, and I'd put in my time. And they, my parents would pick me up at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, go to bed, wake up, go to school, do the same thing all over again, work the weekends. And, so I can have the money to buy, the pants, the shoes that I wanted, the clothes, the backpack, all the gear, buy my first car. My parents told me, they were like, we're not going to buy you a car. We'll pay for your insurance, but you're going to pay for your car. And we're only going to pay for your insurance if you maintain a specific GPA. Okay, done. So like I saved up some money. I borrowed an extra $500 from my grandfather, and I bought a 1984 Chevy Monte Carlo. And this thing was like, it was on his last leg when I got it. And I probably put another 60,000 miles on it, because I would, okay, it needs a new starter. Okay, now I've got to make some more money. Got to put a starter in there. Okay, now the alternator's dead. Now it needs, new battery. And, on top of that, paying my grandfather back the whole time. So I think, instilling that into your children, whether you've got the money or the financial means to give them everything they want or not. I think a lot of parents do their kids a disservice because they have that mentality, oh, I want you to have a better life than I did when I was growing up. You can still give them a better life, but you don't have to like flood their pockets with money. Teach them the value of a dollar. Teach them that time equals money, and teach them work ethics at a young age. My kids at 5 years old had a chore chart. It's like, you want money, you want to go get candy, you want to, pick up Barbies at the store, you want, the new, whatever the hell my son was playing with, the Skylanders characters. Okay, good. You got chores. Take out the trash, sweep, mop, vacuum, all that stuff. And, you'll get paid at the end of the week. So it just teaches them work ethics at a young age.
100%. And that's exactly how it was for us growing up. And imagine the outrage when I found out other kids were getting in an allowance. just for existing.
Yeah.
Like, the outrage. Where I was
Like, what'd you have
this
to do
is-
for your allowance? Nothing. I
Yeah.
just, I get a stipend pretty much.
Exist. I just have to exist with this last name, and
Yeah.
I get $20 a week, because it was back when $20 was a big deal.
$20.
But no, there's actually this little.
It's 2020, $20 or 2021, $20 is still a big deal.
That's true, but it kind of goes back to like I have this picture of my dad on my mantle, and I keep it there, and it's when he was young, and he got a new pair of boots, and I mean he's maybe 2 years old, 3 years old in this picture, and I remember finding this picture, and it just struck me that a pair of boots was worth the time, energy, and effort to take a picture of back then.
Mm-hmm.
This to get one pair of boots. And it just, I look at that picture and I think about like how blessed I am that, you know, if I find a pair of boots this weekend, I buy them, and it's like, good for you. I'm not even going to post a picture on Instagram. Like, it's just one of those, it's commonplace, and it really humbles me, and it brings me back to earth, and it makes me recognize that the work that I put in for the dollars that I make, I should be thankful for, because there have been times where, you know, that $5, that $20, that $200 that I don't really take into consideration as much as I used to, would have changed somebody's life. So it just goes back to how I think parents play such an integral role in the way kids grow up, in recognition and understanding what it really means to work hard. You know, my dad's a self-made man. My granny and my grandpa, you know, my granny worked in a tool factory during World War II, and they were poor. They were dirt poor Irish immigrants that in you know, tenant farmers, and that's kind of what my family's background is. There's no one who had money just right off the rip. Everybody had to work hard for what they've got, and my dad provided a life for us growing up that was incredible. I mean, I didn't want for anything. You know, even when the recession hit, my parents worked their ass off to make sure we had some semblance of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
Even when, if you peek behind the curtain, there was chaos. And it's that kind of respect for your parents that you gain as an adult, and when you recognize just how difficult that can be. So I totally vibe with you on the background.
No, that's awesome. And I run into like very few people that have that same mentality, because I know a lot of people that they grew up with that, I don't want to say privileged life, but their parents had a different outlook on their upbringing. And
Right.
like my kid goes to Boy Scouts with other kids that have a different outlook on that. And they're like, oh, you need all this stuff? Good. We'll just go to the store and get it. And don't get me wrong. I've done that for my son. I've done that for my daughter, just because sometimes it's like, okay, you guys have learned your lesson. You understand the value of a dollar and working. Now I'm going to spoil the hell out of you. But it's
Right.
very few and far between. I do that because
But
I can.
But you spoil with purpose.
Yes.
Like, and that's something my dad did. If I played ball, I had the nicest bat. I had the nicest glove, but I was spoiled with purpose.
Mhm.
You know, I was given the tools to achieve excellence.
Right.
And that's the difference. I didn't get every lollipop and stupid little toy at the checkout line. But when it came down to it, I was provided for in a way that a lot of people don't, and it is privileged, and I'm proud of that privilege. It's nothing I'm ever going to apologize for,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, my parents did a great job, because I recognize that is a privilege, and I was thankful for it along the way.
I don't think you should have to be apologetic for it, because your parents, they busted their ass to provide that for you. So I'm sure that your dad was picking up extra shifts, or your mom was going above and beyond, working longer hours or helping out more around the house, just to, you know, be able to provide and be able to afford you that privilege. And I mean, there's been times, you know, prior to, you know, when my kids are now, like, I've sacrificed, you know, payments on things to get them stuff. It's not really a privilege, you know, but I've busted my ass for everything I had. I wasn't given anything other than my student loan, which I'm paying back, but that's beside the point. That was my stupidity. But you know,
it's just, you see it, like, even with my dad, like, he's the most selfless man, and probably the number one person I look up to. I mean, I to the point of idolizing at this point, because I recognize even now those sacrifices. The same damn pair of New Balances from the time I was, 5 years old. It's the same pair of blue jeans. Like, it was it was a day if my dad got a new sweater or a collared shirt for work. And looking back now at everything I was afforded and seeing how little my dad afforded himself, man, that's enough. That's enough to be inspired to just continue the path and continue that pursuit of excellence, to make him recognize that the investment in me as a child worked out. And, I don't want my parents to have to worry about me. Mm-hmm. And when my dad calls and he tells me he's proud of me and I'm the one kid he really doesn't have to worry about, that speaks volumes. Yeah. It makes me proud. It makes me proud of myself.
No, and you should be. I mean, to be able to carry on that legacy and have that, everything that you brought up is you're putting it to work. So, right. All the values that he instilled in you, you're taking that and you're doing something with it. So it was not wasted effort on any part.
Right.
The next thing I want to ask you is, you said, and you bring up a really interesting point, that your first job was kind of like the stepping stone, and that everybody comes out of school. And I don't know whether it's the billboards, for these big fancy welding schools and stuff that are like, sign up today and you'll be $100K a year. And like, you get all this stuff. And then you get students, like the first day that, I sit my students down, I'm like, hey, why are you here? And we'll go around the room and I'll ask everybody, and I'm like, good. Nobody said you're here for the money. Because if you're here for the money, you're here for the wrong things. Okay. Yeah. I want you all to be here because you want to be here and you want to learn how to weld. You want to learn this craft. The money's going to come. But people get out of welding school, or, people bag on welding because they're like, oh, they're starting off at like $16, $17 an hour. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you've got to do that. And I had a conversation with a young lady a while back. She didn't attend my school, but she's local. And she was asking me, she's like, how do I start making all this big money that everybody's talking about? $25, $30 an hour. And I was like, well, think about it where you're at right now. Okay. You started off at 14 an hour. You've got to kind of put your time in. You get as much skills and you learn as much as you can from that company where you're at right now. And then you go somewhere else. And when you start at that new company, you're at a higher salary. Like, kind of gone are the days where people go into a company and put in 20, 30 years into the same company. Everybody's kind of bouncing around. My grandfather did that, and he bagged on my dad just because my grandfather started for a company at 16 and then retired from that same company at the age of 70. That's the only company he ever worked for his entire life. And
unfortunately, I mean, I think that's a product of our generation, though. I mean, these contract people, these middlemen that have picked up these contracts, it had killed that. I mean, they've killed it for the tradesperson.
Well, that in companies that are saying, oh, this person's getting pretty close to retirement, better find a way to lay them off, So, I mean, that's like that corporate mentality. I heard there's a big company that does a lot of aerospace work, who I'm not going to name drop because I don't want to get hit for libel, but I've talked to some of their employees that, like, they're coming up on their 25th year, and like right around year number 23, all of a sudden they get terminated for something stupid. And they were like, damn, I was so close to my retirement, my benefits, and all this other stuff, and now I've got nothing. Well, yeah, because you were 2 years away. You were 2 years away from becoming a liability. They were going to have to pay for you for the rest of your life if you'd have stayed around for another 2 years. So they had to figure out a way to get rid of you. So that mentality of starting for a company, and working 20, 30 years is kind of gone, because.
And well, you know what else is too? Like, I think another mentality that really wars with that as well is that there's just such this like push for all these people, be your own boss, start your own business, do this. It's like, no, be a good employee. Everybody can't own their own damn business. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, focus on your craft, focus on what you can do, hone your abilities. And why don't you be the biggest asset to a company to where you are not replaceable, where you can't have your job just taken by somebody else. Like, create a work environment where you are absolutely unequivocally needed, where a layoff is not an option, because what you bring to the table makes them money that now you've put that dollar sign on your forehead, and they're not going to let it walk out the door.
Yeah, because if you leave at that point, it's a liability for them.
Exactly. And like, I wish there was a bigger push for apprenticeship programs. I wish there was a bigger push for, how can I make this company money? How can I make this company better? How can I make where I work better, instead of just taking another contract and taking this contract and working for 3 months here and 6 months here. And I think it would really place a greater value on a tradesperson coming in if companies could get back into the mentality of understanding that it is investing time. It's investing in a paycheck. It's investing in process. It's investing in an individual that can bring more to the table than just this merry-go-round of new people of getting off and getting on. But I really think it's a detriment because you've got these two paths. It's like this entrepreneurial path that everybody preaches, or this path of college education, 4-year degree, continuing ed, 2 more years, bachelor's, master's. And there's nothing that has this path less traveled down the middle. It's actually not the path less traveled. It's the path most traveled, because not everybody works in a high rise. Roads have to get built. Things have to be made. If you function in everyday society, you have been touched by a trade. If you go and you flip your light switch on, that's a trade. That's an electrician. Ask the people of Texas right now how high in demand a tradesperson is. And they are begging for people. They will pay you what you want just to get someone down there. And that's why I wish people would just invest in themselves. That makes them a good employee. And I think that if more people had that mentality, it would drastically change the scope and even how people get paid, because they take it more seriously.
I tell my kids that all the time, that, when you get into a company, learn everything you can. The more you understand about how that company operates, the more equipment that you can run, the more things that you can do, the more of an asset you become to that company. So you can get on that track to making more money, or if things aren't working out with that place, you could always go somewhere else. Now you have that skill. So if you learn how to, in addition to your welding skills, operate the press brake, the sheet metal form, the gantry press, like all these tools, the CNC plasma cutters or water jets, now you have that in your repertoire. So when you leave there, you can apply for another job that you previously didn't qualify for. There's your work experience. So now you're building some credibility. And then take some additional courses. I mean, invest in yourself. Like, investing in yourself pays dividends like nothing else will. Go learn another welding process. If you don't, if there's a specific welding process you want to learn, you don't know it yet, go take a night class over at the vocational college. Learn about one thing I want to get into is electrical work. I want to learn how to, become an electrician. And you say no, but like, as much as a welder deals with electricity, like,
I don't want to.
That's the one thing I would like to learn, like, as far as like, multimeters and amp meters and like how to read that stuff and wire things up. I just think that would be kind of cool, because I already do welding and woodworking. I think like electrical, that would be like something that would kind of kick me up another notch, just to understand exactly how electricity specifically operates. I think that'd be one thing that investing myself, that could, maybe not help me make more money, but it makes me more valuable.
100% it does. I guess I'm just like tainted from the nuke world of lockout, tag out, and all the suits, and like I've just been completely tainted. And when it comes to electrical work, I just like don't want anything to do with it. And arc flashes and all that. I was on site one day when we had an arc flash happen, and 3 people got carried off in ambulances. So I was just like, it's not for me.
I'm like 110, 230, somewhere in there. Not like that, all that massive stuff that they're playing with. I mean, they're playing with a lot of stuff. When you have to wear specific equipment and wear like an auto dark welding hood to go up there and flip a switch or replace a fuse, not that type of electrical work. No, I'm talking like nice little Klein tool bag, with an insulated screwdriver. That's about it.
Nice.
nothing too crazy.
That's more my style.
There you go. We'll be right back with the rest of the show, but first we're going to take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by AHP Welders. These machines are great for those looking to try out welding, but don't want to break the bank doing it. For under $1,000, you can get a great running machine to practice at home, tinker in the garage, or do a little bit of welding as a maker. Check out their full line of machines today at ahpwelds.com/arcjunkies, and you'll get a free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade with any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal and TIG torch. We're also brought to you by Strong Hand Tools. They make some of the coolest products around to help you with your fabrication needs. I'm currently using the Rhino table with the 66-piece fixturing kit. I honestly don't know how I worked so long without a proper table. Strong Hand keeps your parts in place, speeding up productivity and increasing your accuracy. Check out a full line of their tools and products to help you get by with your fabrication needs at stronghandtools.com/arcjunkies. All right, let's get back into the show. So tell me about the nuke world. Like, what are some of the, like, what are you welding on inside of the nuke facility? Like, I've never been in a nuke plant.
So a nuke plant is pipe based. So it's a pipe based facility, because you got to remember that nuclear power is generated off of water. So water, it comes from the water source and gets filtered through pipes underneath the plant and up into the turbine units, and it is it's shielded for the whole uranium breakdown, splitting atoms process. And so it's majority, think like pipe hangers, fixtures, valves, ball joints, that kind of thing. Anything is associated with piping systems is what you're going to get in nuke. I-beam, if you can do a 4-inch I-beam test, I mean, that's a major thing for nuke. 6-inch carbon fiber, and then 3-inch heavy wall, I think, are the 3 tests that were required for nuke when I was there. It's great though. I mean, if you could get your foot in the door there as a craft person, tradesperson, going as FME, going as FRS like I did, I mean, that's very, very specified. Go in as anything that you could get in there, sensitive equipment monitor, fire watch, anything. I mean, it's a great opportunity to get experience under your belt, because I was lucky enough to start in materials conditioning. So I was constantly loaned out to crafts. So I'd be HVAC, electrical, welders one day, FRS one day. And it really gave me a taste right off the rip of every single craft and what it had to offer. So I got very lucky in that. But nuclear is a great world. It's a small world. It's one of those things where your reputation precedes you. So like any job site, you can't outrun your reputation. Yep. once you get somewhere. So working hard right off the rip is extremely important. But it's one of those things that's kind of like a built-in call system. As soon as you get in and they've got your name, I still get text messages and calls from recruiters for the nuke world when they're begging for people just to be able to pass a test. And you got to be able to travel. Oh, they do not want someone who wants to stay put anymore. You got to be able to travel, usually the whole East Coast. So it's really, I'm glad I work where I do now, because that's like I finally have a home address, which is something that I've never had until I took this job. So I mean, nuke is great, and I definitely would suggest, if somebody wants that higher pay rate right off the rip, if there is a way to get your foot in the door, take it. But it comes with a catch. If you get your foot in the door, you have to be very sure you don't pigeonhole yourself into one craft or another, because if they fill you for one job, there's a huge chance that you'll only be able to make lateral movements and not necessarily cross the line of craft. So you have to keep that in mind. But it's very much a word of mouth type of environment.
Okay. And then when you did all your traveling and stuff, were you doing like fifth wheel RV or like hotels all the time?
Man, that's one thing that sucks about being the only girl a lot of times, because I would take these one-off 2-week shutdowns, emergency shutdowns. I hung lead for hot pipes in a reactor building one time just to make some extra money. And it sucks because it's like I had no reason to get a fifth wheel. I had the truck. I had a gas burner, made that mistake. So I really couldn't haul anything big, and I would never be gone long enough to kind of justify the campground life, but I would live out a hotel room, and man, it sucks when you're the only girl, because you got to pay for that whole room by yourself. Like other guys will have 4 and 5 guys stacked in there so they can pocket some of that per diem money, but little me, I get my own room to myself. Whole per diem check gone, but it's worth it in the long run.
Okay. So what are some of the precautions that you have to take working in a nuke facility? Do you have to wear like one of those dosimeter devices, or is there specialty equipment, procedures, or anything you have to do? Like I know I've worked in other facilities where we had gas lines, live gas lines that we had to shut down or cordon off or bleed out, or before we can go in there and do any hot work. I mean, is it very? I would imagine it's worse working in a nuke facility.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to run everything by the control room, lockout, tagout procedures. Everything's procedure based. I actually took an extra job, one outage doing well document control. So everything comes in a field package this big. I think they transitioned over to iPads whenever I kind of got out of it to make things a little bit easier. But security. I had highest level of clearances. I've been in team meetings. I mean, dosimetry, yes, of course, as soon as you get on site. Well, depending on what your job specifications are. If you're anywhere near the reactor buildings, of course, you're going to have dosimetry. If you work in the turbine buildings, not necessarily, depending on the component you're working on. Like I was there for eddy current and I didn't have to do dosimetry for those pumps. There's just a lot of different systems. And again, it's in water, out water. If you have like feed water, that kind of thing, it's all job specific, and it really indoctrinated safety first. So I am thankful for that, and starting my career in nuclear, because everything's so heavy on safety. It doesn't matter what your job is. You've got your pre-job brief, your 15 minutes before job, 15 minutes post job, but go through security, bomb detectors every day. Got to get to work 45 minutes early to get a parking spot. So it's not all glamorous, but I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, I got to pressure wash the top of Unit 1 reactor building in Oconee nuclear station. And it was incredible because, you know, I got to be at the highest point in Oconee County and see all the lakes. And so there's little things like that you would never expect with a job, but, you know, it comes with experiences that are pretty neat.
Right. That's the one thing I miss about ironwork is the view.
Yes.
Like when you get up there and you're at the tallest peak in the city or the county or whatever, and you look around and you can just see the entire landscape, and it's really
humbling.
surreal. It's very humbling. You're like, damn,
Very humbling.
I'm that
Yes.
small. Like you don't realize how small you are until you get up off the ground.
Yes. And you see how small people are down there too.
Look like ants down there. Yeah. That's how small you are. So
100%.
When did you get to do inspections or anything like that? Because you were talking about eddy current a minute ago.
I honestly, I was just a helper. He did explain it to me in the little radiographic screen that they've got. It's green, looks like a little video. Honestly, it looks like an 80s video game, like one of those old school with the big white computer monitors. I was really good friends with QC out there, but I didn't really do a whole lot of inspections. No, I didn't really. Everything was more hands-on work for me whenever I got in the field. Everything was hardcore hands-on work in the field for me.
Okay. And then did they have you working off, like when you walk up to a weldment, did they have a specific welding procedure specification that you had to follow, and like have like
Always.
an inspector right there with you, making sure you're using the right filler metal
Check off points,
amperage,
sign off points, you name it. I mean, weld docs out there are something serious, and you know, you get a stamp number and everything can be tied back to you. So the pressure is on. There's a reason why those guys get paid so much money. And it is because the pressure that comes with it. I mean, because it's a pressure vessel, essentially. I mean, it's water pressure. I mean, have you ever heard of water hammer before?
Water hammer.
Where it gets the water gets backed up in the piping system, and all you hear is just this like boom, boom, boom from the water hammer. Man, it makes you recognize how important it is for a welder to be on their P's and Q's, and respectively a CWI and a QC, not to be pencil whipping stuff. I mean, it kind of works hand in hand, especially when it comes to the things going on out there. But I saw a little bit of everything. I did cable pulling out there, painter, materials conditioning, material handling, warehouse group, you name it. I wore the hat out there. So it's definitely a good experience.
Nice. So now you're into doing aerospace stuff?
Yes.
So tell me about that a little bit. I mean, because that's got to be a drastic change. So now, like you said, you got a home address. So you got like, you're walking into the same facility every day, welding on the same parts or different parts every day, but you got like your own little weld area set up?
Well, I forget how cool it is. I mean, you get so jaded when you go and you do what you do for a living every day until you get to start talking about it. And you know, I go in one day and we've got a military contract. I go in one day and we've got experimental aircraft parts that we've got to build. Go in the next day and, you know, so the 23 car is behind and we need to build parts for the race this weekend. And it's incredible the vast array of things that I get to weld on a daily basis. I mean, you're talking sheet metal to 1/4-inch aluminum to, inch thick steel weldments for a mooring mast, for a docking station, for an experimental aircraft that we just are assisting in building the aircraft itself and the mooring mast. And, it's a huge blessing because when I started welding school back, I always envisioned myself at a place like Boeing or something like that. I wanted my pilot's license forever, and time kind of got in the way of that. And I was like, what's the next best thing? I'll build airplanes. Like I really, really would have killed to work at Just Aircraft in South Carolina, where they build bush planes. And I never in a million years would have ever thought that I would be where I am today, building titanium parts to go on airplanes and, building just things. I think building things that are so cool, they've got NDAs attached to them and I can't even talk about them. Right. So it's just, and projects that have unveilings years from now that'll change history. And it was built with a part that I made, and it's incredible.
Now, do you have access to the knowledge of what whatever part you're building, where that's going or what it's going to be put on?
100%.
That's really cool.
When I went to California, we got to see the process of it actually being built. We were actually in the facility, the hangar itself, and got to see everything. We got to see the video, the time-lapse video, and, Alan Weston out there with LTA, they're great. As soon as we stepped foot on site, they were so accommodating, and it was just such a different feel from your kind of roughneck industrial stuff that I'm used to. It was just like snacks and water.
Yeah, there's snacks and coffee. They got a Keurig machine over there in the corner. It's always different walking into a white. Yeah, it's different walking into a white collar environment. You're like, I don't.
Oh,
do I have to?
100%.
Is there like a little jar I need to put $1 in if I grab the chips,
right.
or like?
It's not even a jar, an old coffee can.
Yeah, where's the empty coffee can? I put my money in so I can get coffee.
I was like, someone get me in a harness or something. I need to be in a piece of equipment because this is weird.
Yeah, it's like when I went up to Lincoln Electric, the lady comes in with a snack cart, and I'm like, we got to pay for this stuff? And they're like, no, just help yourself. Grab whatever. You want a soda or you want to, this, chips. I was like, wow, I'm not used to this. Wild. This is really cool.
I know. And these guys are just like.
Yeah, it's just normal day at the office. Yeah, it's just normal day at the office. So you get smoothie Tuesdays and stuff. It's
hilarious too, because we were erecting this mooring mast that we built, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that. We were re-erecting something that we built, and it was clean. It was like clean weldments, and we welded them together. We welded the I-beams together. We welded the components together, and they had painted it white, and it was like, I know I posted a picture of putting it together at one of the joints, and everyone's like, "You're not even dirty. This is a fake work post." And I'm like, "Bro, I am
legit.
Blessed."
Yeah, this is legit work. I just we actually toured a CBD manufacturer down here in Florida, and they need welders, and what they work on is it's all food grade. It's all regulated by the FDA and the U.S. government. So you got to wear the little booties and the little bunny suit and the hairnet. And I'm like, damn, I'm not used to this. Is like clean work environment. Yeah. It's like, you're not grinding anything in this room.
Oh my God, that's how it is. So I work in Joe Gibbs Racing, the actual facility in Huntersville, North Carolina. So we have a room within the facility. So it's like Mecca. It's like Taj Mahal, clean. I mean, titanium, our work environment in our room. We can't grind anything in there. We have a designated grinding room that has a vent and a door locks behind you and the vacuum cleaner for when you're done. And it is immaculate. I mean, you could lick the floor and feel okay about yourself.
Right.
That is that nice. And it blows me. And that's kind of what aggravates me about this preconceived notion on welders is there's so many different tiers. There's so many different levels. There's so many different hats you wear. And it's just, you can be somebody where, yeah, you're filthy, you're dirty. I've been there, covered in grease. I'm welding on a threaded rod, welding a greasy nut on threaded rod that's been in a turbine unit for 10 years and praying my weld holds for them to rip it out. And then I can go from that to welding titanium. And I've got to put gloves on to even handle the tubes that come from the manufacturer so I can clean it with acetone and then make my weld. And then it has to be perfectly shiny titanium with absolutely no color and no fingerprints. So it's such a huge array. And just, I wish people recognize that about welding, that there's so many different avenues that you can travel down with it.
100%. Now, did you think you'd be doing any of this cool stuff when you were like down there in school with your hood down, welding on the little 4-inch coupons and?
No, no, never. I mean, if now Chloe talked to the back then Chloe, I was terrified. I mean, you want to talk about someone whose confidence was not there, because I knew what the real world of craft was. I knew what people said. I knew the shit talking. I knew like what comes with putting your work out there for everyone to judge it. And I was petrified. Like if what I produced wasn't clean, wasn't perfect, I didn't even want the instructor to look at it. I mean, there had been many a time where I was like, no, excuse me, sir, come back. Give me an hour. I'm going to fix this. This is not a representation of who I am. I thought it was going to be a struggle. I thought it was going to be a journey. I thought it was going to be something I was going to have to cut short. You know, I thought I was going to have to resort back to my administration skills and just be on a keyboard, because you just never know. You never know what life's going to hand you. But I can tell you this much. It wasn't easy, and I worked for it, and I am happy. I am happy where I am. And I know that I can feel blessed because I know what it is on the flip side. So
what's next for Chloe Hudson?
I don't know. I've been thinking about CWI, CWE. Read the D17-1 code book the other day, and because that's what we work off of. Kind of, because with experimental aircraft, you're not really held to a specific code. So that's really just what we work off as a reference point. And I am one of those people that I've constantly got to be learning. I am a information sponge. I want to learn things. I read so much that I was kind of thinking CWI might be for me, but I love welding. I mean, if I was exactly where I am 10 years from now, I wouldn't complain. I am that happy with where I am. And I think that speaks volumes for the people that I work for. They've created a work environment for me to say that.
I highly recommend going to get your CWI if that's something that you're even considering or thinking about. And not necessarily once you get it jumping out of the trades and becoming an inspector, but
I'll tell you that contribute.
Yeah, no, when I went and got my CWI, I think having the training and the knowledge of a CWI helped me become a better welder, and having welding experience prior to taking the CWI exam helped me to become a better CWI, if that makes sense.
Agree 100%. And it's the reason why I didn't start off. I mean, there's a lot of people who travel the path of just going right into inspection. And I knew with my plight that, everything in trades is respect-based. It is. It is what it is. If you're a safety guy and guys don't respect you, throw it out the window, because nobody's going to put a pair of safety glasses on around you, or they're going to do it and they're going to take them off. No different than CWIs. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that CWI on site that everybody dreads, because it makes your life miserable.
Right.
And people don't really talk about that either. It's just like, don't be the hard ass, because nobody wants to be around you, and who wants to be alienated in their life, So it was always really important to me that, because I saw what QC was and I saw what CWI was from a different perspective, even from the unbiased perspective as somebody who was just working on the component, even just painting the valve after it was welded in place, getting to see every unbiased angle of what it was, it made it even that much more inherently important to me that I had the work experience in the time in the field to back up my knowledge of what it would come with a CWI. So it's definitely something that I'm really considering and taking seriously. You know, I've got the book. I've like I said, I've already read the D17-1 code, and I think by the end of this year, it might be for me.
Look into it. I highly recommend it. And I mean, like,
I will.
Worst case scenario, if something happens, God forbid, and you wake up one morning and you can't weld, you always have something related to welding that you can fall back on.
100%. Even if it's consulting, like people forget, you know, there is that realm too that comes with inspection. If you can consult on jobs and even price them for people, man,
Side
you
work.
are in high demand.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, and there's a lot of welders that do inspection work. Like I know myself and Nate Bowman, we both do the same thing. We weld, you know, as a trade, but we also run some CWI stuff on the side and do consulting work and training. And, you know, making sure people understand. Yeah, exactly.
Man, if you can write a weld procedure and save somebody else from doing it, they'll pay you good money to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And I've had a blast since I got my CWI. And like, I'm not the guy that walks into the shop and is like the hard ass.
I'm ready to fail.
Yeah, I'm ready to fail. I'm going to fail all you guys. Nope. You know, yeah. Not doing that. You know, like I walk in and just have a normal conversation with them. Hey, you know, what are we doing today? Okay, you know, here's what the procedure says. Here's why it's important to follow the procedure. Talk to about, you know, heat input and, you know, give them some information. And then, I'll give them like a little class. Here's where you can find more information about what you're doing so that they have a better understanding. Because, you know, you get a lot of welders out there that they really don't know what they're doing. They've been through school. They got a little bit of OJT. And they, you know, some of them have a lot of bad habits, and you can kind of make them aware of some of the things they're doing wrong and make them a better welder. And that's kind of what I like doing.
Machine settings is a huge thing. My first job that I took that I had to do 6 tests, 6-inch plate tests. That was how I got my first welder job. Man, if this man tells you a machine setting, put it on there. I don't give a damn if you think it's wrong. You put it on there and you make it work, because they've seen enough people come through this place where they can dial it in. And if you see a Sharpie mark on a machine, try it. Yeah. Just try it. Get a test plate, get a test coupon, and just try it out, because it could save your certification if you are just not hard-headed and you just think for a second that maybe somebody else knows more than you, because they do, especially when it comes to specific tests. Just do it.
Yeah, always be open to new information.
Yes. Oh my God. Never stop being a student.
So what's something you would recommend for anybody wanting to get into welding, somebody maybe wanting to get into nuke welding or aerospace? Man, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. Just go in with the expectation of understanding it's hard work, and it's hard for men, women. It doesn't matter. It's hard for everybody, and everything's heavy. You know, I wish somebody would have told me everything was freaking heavy on job sites, aerospace included. You know, once you put a component in a crate, man, that thing is heavy. So personal health is such a huge factor when it comes to trades that no one talks about. Taking care of yourself when you're in the field, and being able to make sure that you can lift something and team lifts and your lower back being in good shape. And there's been many a time, you know, I've been stuck in a room when I've got to get this thing off a pallet onto a cart onto my station, and there's not an overhead crane. There's not some cherry picker somewhere where I can, you know, rig this thing up. It's got to get from A to B, and the only person who can do it is me. And if that means going to a gym and taking care of yourself and that's your motivation, let it be, because if you are hurt, you can't work. And that sucks. So that's something that I wish there was more light shed on just in the industry itself. Like, and then you should be your own worst critic. Like this competition people want to get in with you with school, with people that you work with, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on it, but the dick measuring contest, yep. Like do not get caught up in that. Like, you should be better than your last weld, and that's on you. And I had an instructor who was very honest with me and who told me that, you know, it's an expectation for perfection because of who I am and what I represent in this industry. And I appreciated it at the time.
it was tough to swallow, but now I go in with the mindset that if I walk away from this piece and somebody walks in and picks it up, are they going to be impressed? Or are they going to set it back down with a note that says some smart ass comment next to it? Because it happens. And so it's just, it's taking the time to find that perfection and practice your ass off. Practice, 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 practice. I cannot stress this enough. You will not get better standing around talking to people. Practice.
Thank you.
If you have booth time, take it.
Yes.
Like, be the little asshole in the booth that they're like, can we please leave? And you're just like, one more run. Like, be that person.
I love those students. I love those students in my class that's like, hey, it's time to clean up. Oh, well, let me just finish this one weld. And like, you come back, check on them like 10 more minutes later, and they're still working and their area is still a mess. And it's like, all right, I'm going to give you like 10 more minutes and then I'm going to help you clean up because the next class is coming in. But I love that. Or the ones that come in early. And take notes.
Yes. Oh my God, take notes. We are in the information age. Snap a picture of your machine. If you dial your machine in, take a picture of it. If you want to know how I got my certs, that is how I did it. I will never forget. We were doing a demo. Our teacher was doing a demo in class, and being the book nerd I am, I've got my phone out and I'm on my notes and I'm like, every little thing he says, I'm typing it in there and I'm taking a picture and taking video, and I get dressed down in front of everyone for having my phone out. And he's like, what are you doing on your phone? You're supposed to be paying attention. I was like, you don't understand. I'm paying extra attention. And he was like, I've never had a student do that before. I was like, why? Like, this is gold for me, because everybody welds different. So settings that work for me may not work for you. If you're a slower welder, if you're a hotter welder, if you're a colder welder, so it is so inherently important to make sure you take those notes, because as soon as you're off one skill and onto a next, you're already decaying that previous skill. So practice it all the time. I don't care. I hate 60-10s. I hate them. But guess who can run them? Because I practice them a whole lot. So that's the most important factor, I think, when it comes to being a welder.
Don, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had students that, hey, do you mind if I record you while you're doing this? I said, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Just make sure you're not filming anybody else. And if you are, just make sure you get their consent too. But yeah, have at it. But just so you know, I'm probably going to drop some expletives. So, I mean, that's just how I teach. I'm a Marine and I'm a welder, and, things slip every once in a while. The phone is a great resource because, like you said, you can take a picture with your phone, and then you can click on the edit and markup button, and you can put extra notes in there, or you can take a picture and import it into your notes and then type out all your notes. So now you've got a photo reference, and then you get the information to go along with it. So it's not just another photo sitting in your library. I mean, there's actually some substance 100%. To it. Yeah. I mean, use the tools that you have.
Still to this day, I still do it. To this day, if I weld on a component, man, and if I have a fixture for it, I'll take a Sharpie and I'll write the amps on the fixture itself. So if I've got to rebuild this part, 30 amps. Okay, that's what I was on. My CFH 40. That's what I was on. I used a BBW for this. Like, notation is so important. So important.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to check out some of your work.
I am at Arc Welding Angel on Instagram. That's pretty much the only thing I have. Okay. Because I was a little late to the game in the social media scape, but there's a lot of things on there, a lot of different processes that I'm proud of. Of course, you post what you're proud of. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, awesome. Chloe, I appreciate your time. It was awesome talking to you. I've been wanting to chat with you for a while. So I'm glad we were able to hook up and have a good conversation.
Wonderful. And it was wonderful talking to you as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning into the episode. I hope you found Chloe and I's conversation entertaining and inspiring. Make sure to tune in every Monday for new episodes. Join me next week where I'm going to be chatting with Nick Bazatis of Bazatis Construction. Don't forget to check out all the fine Arc Junkies merchandise at arcjunkies.com and pick up a hat, shirt, or hoodie to support the show. You can follow me on Instagram at ArcJunkiesPodcast, and you can email me directly, show@arcjunkies.com. Thanks again for the support. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.